It's time to link up with Dr. Computer, Alex Newman, here on The Breakfast Show. It is a Techie Thursday. Good morning to you, Alex.
Good morning, Jerry. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very, very well. It's going to be nice. We've got a guest joining us a little bit later on, so that'll be nice.
Yep. In the meantime, I want to talk to you about some of the product launches that have been happening this week. And the biggest one yet is the one I'm holding right here in my hand, the Galaxy.
Oh, how nice. It's a box.
Yes. And inside that box is something pretty exciting. The Galaxy Z, you would say, Fold 3, the third generation of the folding phones.
I was going to ask you about that because I was looking at some tech news this morning, but they're bringing out foldable phones with a harder screen, which are going to be cheaper.
Well, yes and no. This model, the Z Fold 3 or the Z Fold 3, is going to be slightly more expensive than the last one, although it does bring
that was expensive enough.
Yeah. The Z Fold Flip is going to be, the Flip 3 is going to be a little bit less expensive, which is a welcome, bit of news for the flip phone and the foldable phone enthusiasts out there. And I've barely even opened the box yet. I'm going to be doing an unboxing tomorrow.
It's got a, I can see them from here, a lot of fingerprints.
Oh yeah, because that's like the wrapping it comes in. I'm going to, take that out. Yeah, the thing is, I'm going to be taking the wraps off of this thing literally tomorrow for my next week's TV show. So be sure to check in on that for the unboxing. And
what's the difference between this one and the first one then?
Well, there are several differences. One of them, for example, is the under the screen camera that's going to be completely out of the way, in the sense that you see the entire screen and not the little hole at the top of the traditional phones, or the notch, or what they call the eyebrow in Spanish, because it kind of looks like a thick eyebrow on top of most phones by your friends at Apple. And yeah, one of the things that they've come up with for this generation of the phone is a underscreen camera that shoots through the camera, the screen itself, so that you can enjoy the full screen experience without having any sort of notch or hole punch or anything like that. In tests by some reviewers that have already gotten advanced copies, it looks like that little spot does get a little bit less fidelity in the capture of the information if you have strong backlights or similar situations like that, right where the camera hole should be, in that side of the picture. But for most pictures and for most usages, you will barely notice it's there. In fact, if you're not actively looking for it, it's like the phone had no camera at all, even though it does have multiple cameras.
But is it important? I mean, the only time you're going to see it is when you're taking a selfie.
Not even that, because you can always fold it and use the other screen to use the regular camera of the phone as the selfie camera. So even in most situations, you won't use it. The main situation where you might notice that is when you're doing Zoom calls and you have the phone folded up like a stand, and you're doing Zoom calls, and you can see the Zoom video on one part of the screen, and then either the chat or whatever the presenter's presenting on the other half of the screen. And that's where a lot of the improvements have come in, and hopefully we'll see some of those improvements trickle down to the previous generation. A lot of applications have formed partnerships with Samsung to improve the quality of the dual screen or the multi-screen experience. For example, if you're watching YouTube and you fold it up, you can still watch YouTube on half the screen and then look at the comments live. For example, if you're looking at a live set of comments on a YouTube video or on a streaming video. They also have had partnerships with other applications such as Microsoft Office and Zoom and Teams and so on, and they will continue to do so in order to improve the dual screen capabilities. Also, little things that were in the previous generation as well have been improved, such as you can choose which applications continue to run even though you fold the phone. Because it used to be that if you folded the phone, a lot of the applications would just, sorry, almost, sorry about that.
Yes, sneeze. Yeah,
a
bless
little
you.
bit.
Yes.
Thank you. So a lot of the applications would close because when you fold it up like a checkbook, you probably are going to just put it in your pocket right after. But now you can choose which applications continue to run, even though you fold the screen on the Galaxy Z Fold 3 and the flip phone as well. A lot of other improvements have been made, especially in the hinge. It used to be that a lot of people complained that the hinge would get a lot of dust and dirt and all sorts of stuff put in. So what they did was they worked on the IPX waterproofing and dustproofing capability so that you can actually use this even underwater, because what they did is instead of making the hinge mechanism and all the stuff that's in there waterproof, what they did was they made everything else, the two halves, waterproof in and of themselves, and just made the hinge a lot more resilient. So it feels a lot sturdier, a lot better in your hand, and it makes for a better phone. And hopefully this will be something that will, just like the Note made an impression on the industry and made large phones part of all the other manufacturers' offerings. I'm hoping that more foldable phones, such as, for example, the one from Microsoft, which we've already talked about as well, make the mainstream. So it's going to be an option, and the prices will eventually come down, just like they did with the large phone format. So we're going to look into that as well. I haven't even had a chance to take it out of the box yet, so I'll give you my impressions next week as I use it as my daily driver for a few days and see what happens.
All right, fine. I mean, because I'm still using my Note 10, and I don't even notice the little camera thingy because it's on the top bar. So it's a lot of money for something which is, well, I don't know. I tell you what I do need though. What I do need is when I get my old photographs, I need to try and get them looking good. And that's our guest this morning who's been done that. Good morning to Rick Voight. Good morning to you, Rick. Can you hear us okay?
I certainly can. Good morning to both of you.
And how are you?
I am well. Greetings from Charleston, South Carolina to all the way in Panama.
There we go. That's it. Isn't the world getting smaller? I mean, I hadn't heard of Zoom when the pandemic started.
We actually had converted to Zoom about a year beforehand, but we certainly are using it a whole bunch more now.
Yeah, and it's great to see you. And thanks for joining Alex and myself this morning. And as I mentioned earlier on, Rick is the CEO of Vivid Pix and a publisher, Reunions magazine, and a lifelong snap shooter. I mean, was it this that got you into the software, Rick? Was wanting to get your photos better, or?
So I've been in the photo business my entire professional career. So I spent a bunch of years at Kodak, then HP, and then with Vivid Pix now for 9 years. And since we have always been in the photo business, and because we had once before worked in the underwater world, we created our first software, Land at Sea Scuba, our first patent. And then about 5 years ago, decided to get into the old photo and then document improvement business as well, and our second patent.
Oh, good. And I mean, I tell you what, I did download it yesterday, the trial version, and here is a picture of me. And I won't tell you how many years ago that was, but I can tell you it certainly needed rehabilitation.
Well, you're certainly a dapper guy then and now.
You must come on more often than Alex. You're out of a job.
Well, it's fun to know that Vivid Pix also works with daguerreotypes.
I thought they were dead. Too much Doctor Who. But nice and simple to use. I did because I've got plenty of old photographs, needless to say, and I've been using one of the sort of the big was it Coral things. But your software's made it so easy and plenty of choices as to the image that sort of pleases your particular palette as well.
Excuse the play on words with the word palette, right? Color
Yes.
palette. So yeah, what we wanted to do is, and what we've done is to create software that anyone's able to use.
Hmm.
And that's really why we've received the patents that we have, is that we have artificial intelligence, which creates algorithms in order to be able to automatically improve images.
Mhm.
So literally what happens is folks are able to select one or more photos or documents. They're then able to, it runs through the algorithm, and then they're given a 9-up screen. And that
Right.
9-up screen, the center image is what the software feels is best.
Mhm.
However, everyone does see lightness and contrast differently. So we ring that center image with increased contrast, less light,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
increased light, less contrast, so that the person's able to choose what looks best to them. So it's the combination of very powerful software, user interaction, so that we're fine tuning it to what the person likes. And then
Mhm.
we also allow them the flexibility very easily with sliders to be able to update further if they wish. And usually it's not necessary.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
I
But
remember from the 90s, there used to be algorithms such as digital ice and specialized hardware. I mean, you worked at HP, you probably know a lot about this, that would use things like infrared light to detect dust and scratches on film and things like that, and even have to deal with different types of photo film, such as Ektachrome and slides and so forth. A lot of that went in, a lot of effort went into the hardware, and also a lot of effort had to be made by the people working on these photographs. I mean, I've seen people work for hours on end just tweaking little things here and there. How do your algorithms compensate for the fact that most of the time the pictures that we want to scan haven't been scanned by, these high-end scanners, or they are in really bad condition? I mean, what kind of intelligence does the algorithm rely on to make these photos better?
Absolutely. And it's very nice speaking with you, because you obviously have great insight. So Digital Ice was developed by a company called Advanced Science Fiction, based out of Texas. Kodak actually acquired that company through the years where I was there, and also Randy, my business partner, was there. And what Kodak ended up doing way back in the 90s is to be able to create, when we were transitioning from analog to digital, we were printing with lasers, so little dots of bright light, as opposed to a big shot of light that would hit a negative, hit a piece of paper positive, and that made our print. So that was really the beginning of digital. And that actually is when Randy, my business partner, and I met. So Randy actually holds over 150 patents in color and image science. And that's why we, Vivid Pix, hold 2 patents, is that we're fairly adept at how to be able to improve images with color science. Then 2, to get at the point of your question, is what we do with our algorithms is we're able to analyze what has gone wrong. So think about an Ektachrome you mentioned. So Ektachrome tends to fade blue. Color prints tend to fade red. And it isn't necessarily that the colors have faded to that color, it's that the other colors have faded more. So let's say a color print. So that color print becomes red because the red dye has actually become more prominent in the image. So what we do is we understand how the color has changed. We put it into color balance. We put it into white balance. And then we're able to produce then an image that has been improved. So it's very, very intelligent software.
How does it deal, for example, also with things like old black and white prints? There used to be 2 styles of them: the actual black and white prints with silver material that would, scatter light in one way, and you had the other ones that were made for processing in the color processing machines, but came out with black and white results. If I understand correctly, these also fade in a completely different fashion, or in the case of the black and white silver ones, they don't fade at all. And there's questions about, for example, emulating the original grain and so on. How does Vivid Pix work around such a diverse amount of different media that people might have, including color slides, which also dust shows up as white instead of dark, if I understand the process correctly. How does that work, especially in areas where detail could be missed or misinterpreted by previous algorithms?
Great question. So a number of different things involved in that. So the first part is essentially everything does fade, and that fade is based on the paper, i.e. the medium that you're printing on, as well as any dyes that are a part of it. So you bring up black and white, which is shades of gray, right? And at that point, the paper is going to be fading, and also the dyes are going to shift in those layers of gray. So what we are able to do is, one, when you open up our software, it starts off in what's called faded printer slide mode. And with that, we do that because you may have a black and white photograph, but it looks sepia because it's faded yellow. And then what the person is able to do in literally 1, 2, or 3 buttons is it starts in color. They're able to click one button and it is now optimized for black and white. And then sepia, they're able to click one button and it's optimized for sepia photographs. And a lot of people don't really realize that sepia was introduced in the processing bath. So as the developer was moving that piece of paper within the liquid, it would be an art on how red or less red it would become to be sepia. So to answer your question, it is taking a look, it looks at everything as color first. B, allowing the user to quickly say, yeah, you know, it looks good that way. And a lot of people like some of that fade to stay within their images to keep some authenticity. And then C, if they want to quick hit the black and white, we optimize it for the black and white. Then taking your question a little bit further, but I think it's included in your statement, is there are many things that happen to those images because of the silver that was within the paper, the receiver of that information. And there's also other things that happen. For instance, mold can accumulate. And that's something that we've learned a lot in working with the genealogy family history world is like with documents, is that old documents can really get black because of mold. And we're actually able to, in a way, look through the mold so that we're able to see the lines of the text in order to be able to make that more legible. So we're able to understand the grain. We're able to understand like a daguerreotype or those types of things, very different than a print. And then B, allow the user to fine tune, and then C, even take some of the residual things like the mold and the like to make those more visible, the actual, you know, the writing and the like. And then lastly, you're bringing up dust and the like. We do not dust remove, and that's a choice. We know how to do it. We simply don't. And the reason for that is that we're extremely fast. So what we do is we, of course, recommend to folks to clean the scanner, to clean their photographs. There are lots of good instruction on the internet. We can talk about it as well, to make sure that those photographs are clean. Then you scan it, and then we just do an amazing job with image improvement.
I mean, one thing that I noticed, I must admit, one of the things, like when I'm working independently with some of the software, is when you use the sharpening, it becomes, you sort of almost get this sort of white line. It becomes too much. This is one of the things, because I did actual fact use some of the sharpening on this picture I did this morning. And what I like is there's more of a smoothness to it. I think this is always one of the problems, because you know, you mentioned earlier on, I think this is one of the good things for people that are listening with this, is that you have made it very uncomplex to make the changes, because I say using sort of I use Coral Paint Shop, and I mean I don't even use a quarter of the functions on it probably. And it's a very sort of, if you like, daunting program when you look at it. You haven't used it, but here is a tool that somebody can pick up, make a lot of big changes to, you know, families that perhaps pictures that have been in the family for many, many years, and get really good results without having to have an in-depth knowledge as to why. I mean, you've been explaining, of course, all the AI and how it works and what it's doing, whatever. But to the normal sort of everyday person, what they want to stick it in and get a good and it is that easy to use, which I think is you know, the big thing for me is how, you know, it's there for everybody. Kid could sit down and be quite happy, but especially the sort of 2 and 3 year olds these days that can use an iPhone and they'll be well away. So I mean, congratulations on that. And as I say, I was quite happy with the I've got a lot of other sort of old family pictures in there, which I shall be fiddling around with as well. And I assume that is what was behind it. You wanted to make it accessible and simple for people to get a good result.
Thank you for all the kind words, and you're absolutely nailing exactly how we design the software. And maybe some of that comes from our Kodak roots. Is George Eastman, the founder of Eastman Kodak, had a pretty good concept over 100 years ago, which was you press the button, we do the rest. And he brought photography to the masses. What we have designed is, underneath the hood, very, very intelligent software, but putting it in a way that everyone can use it. And the software programs, you've mentioned one, there are others that are excellent software, but they can be daunting. And the learning curve to be able to learn how to use them can be daunting, can take many hours or a lifetime to learn how to use. And we didn't want that. We wanted something that everyone can use. And then you describe a younger person and how easy it would be to use. Absolutely. And we also fine tune it for the older generation market as well.
Thank you.
Which was not a pointed statement. I'll let Alex do that. But what's fun about it is family history genealogy. As we age, and I'm sure I'm not that far away from you, as we age, our legacy becomes more and more important to us. Both what we have done and where we came from becomes more important. And it's not that older adults are technology nascent and don't want to learn, but they, as a population group, need to be shown why it's important to them. And they've already established the importance of family history. So now to just put a tool in their hands so that it goes quickly, and then they can go through more of these old photos and documents. And people have thousands, tens of thousands of these images. So you don't want to spend hours on an individual image. You want to be able to get on with the stories that these images and documents represent. So image improvement should just be a tool into something larger. That's our perspective.
I mean, one thing as well, because I know there's a separation between the restore and the sort of we call land and sea scuba restore programming. What is the sort of the big difference that makes it not sort of encompassed, if you like, in your originals, just the restore program, but specifically for this particular area?
Great question. Thank you. So when you take a picture underwater, the water is actually filtering the warm colors and then the cooler colors at different rates. So your reds and your oranges, they're going to be filtered out first. And then as you go deeper underwater, or the distance between the camera and the subject becomes more and more great, the effect of the warm versus the cool colors is increasing.
Mm-hmm.
So the algorithm is very, very different in order to be able to improve those underwater photos. And we use both patents actually within the Restore product, because we got very good at sharpening, you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So water's blurry, and as we are needing to improve an underwater photo to make that fish or reef or diver more sharp, we needed to be able to sharpen that in a eloquent way. So we brought that knowledge into Restore. So the algorithm is different, but then with the Restore product, back to that one, we take the knowledge that we have, we bring that into Restore as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then recently we've added a sharpening slider currently in the Windows, about to be released within Mac as well. By the way, we give free updates.
Mm-hmm.
And that slider allows you to fine tune. And if I get really geeky on you for a second, we play with the sigma and the radius, which is how much sharpening are you doing, and then on those edges really putting the gas on it.
Sure.
We do that automatically in the sliders, both of those adjustments, so that the sharpening is quite easy to affect and is also pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Now, you mentioned Kodak, and one of the lessons that a lot of people have learned from how Kodak was this powerhouse a few decades ago, and then they kind of stood still while the industry moved on. What plans do you have to put this tool in more people's hands? You have, for example, versions for Windows and for Mac. Are you considering, for example, going mobile as in Android or iOS? Are you considering, for example, developing plugins for other tools such as Corel that Gerry uses, or Photoshop, for professionals to save time, in which they would probably use the built-in tools of these, more powerful applications and work for hours on end? But for some projects, they might want a tool that just saves them a lot of time and effort and have some sort of end result much quicker. Also, do you guys maybe think about leveraging cloud services? I've seen that a lot of tools, for example, in the audio and the voiceover, for example, industries, have made either hybrid apps that offload some of the work to a cloud service, which also becomes a revenue stream for some of these companies, or that they go completely cloud-based so that people could, for example, upload their pictures and then have them processed without worrying that their computer's slow or outdated or anything like that. What's in the future for Vivid Pix?
Many things.
Anything you can share.
Some of which I will share.
Okay.
So the first part is mobile. We've obviously been paying attention, with over 90% of all images being captured on mobile devices, with many people using a mobile device to take a picture as opposed to an actual scanner in order to bring it into our software. We pay attention, of course, to all those trends. We came out with an iOS app 5-6 years ago for land and sea and land and sea scuba. And the rate at which some of the manufacturers, whether it be Apple, that has multiple changes within a particular year, and as a software manufacturer, you need to keep up with all those things or your software stops running. And then B, with Android devices, the Android devices, every year it's a completely different build. You need to be able to revert backward to X number of past releases in order to be able to make the software work. So the short answer is yes. We have looked at it before. The answer is yes, we will have mobile as an offering. I won't say same offering, I won't say different offering, but mobile will be coming into the portfolio. B, having to do with cloud services. So as an example, we have a relationship with a company called File Shadow. So F-I-L-E Shadow, S-H-A-D-O-W. And what File Shadow has done is they've together, we've created the ability for folks to be able to use the file shadow infrastructure, which is cloud-based storage, pulling up images from multiple devices. And then within the file shadow program, the person is able to use restore so that we are the image improvement engine within file shadow. So we're a small company. We own our own company, and with that in mind, you develop based on time and money, and in partnerships. And in File Shadow are great people, and we want to work with great people, companies that are doing the right things. And what they've done is just create scalable VMs, virtual machines in the cloud, that's allowing the software to run within that background area. As far as you had a third part.
Plugins for
Plugins.
Yeah.
Yep. So currently we have another implementation, say for instance, within colleges and libraries across America, where, for instance, if you walk into a New York Public Library, Chicago Public Library, Los Angeles Public Library, Salt Lake City Public Library, Northwestern University, blah, 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 blah. There's a company called TBS, which is Today's Business Solutions, based just south of Chicago, Illinois, where folks are able to walk into their system and scan and import and those types of things. And again, we're the black box image improvement within those software programs as well. Because our image science is so unique, that's our family jewel, of course. So the ability to create a plug-in to a Lightroom or other type of program. Two-part answer. First part answer is that you're able today within the software to import multiple types of images: JPEGs, TIFFs, RAWs, PNG, DNG, BMP, all those types of image formats, and you're able to output those as a JPEG or a TIFF file. When you're outputting that TIFF file today, you can use all the power of our software, then import that TIFF file into any of the other software programs to allow all the layers and curves to occur. It's a different workflow than a plug-in, but it works really well and a lot of folks use it. You can expect that a plug-in is something that we're looking at quite seriously.
Okay, we're just about sort of coming up to the top of the hour, about out of time, Rick. Firstly, thank you. I mean, just one quick comment. What I was, with Alex's comment there about, using these sort of, if you like, these larger programs. One thing where I would find your software useful, even using the other programs, is the fact that there is a big difference. I would use Coral or one of the other ones that Alex mentioned. I would use that for creativity. But what I would do is I would use your program to fix my pictures first, in other words, correction, and then move them in to the other program to work with, rather than fiddling around all the time with the other program to get just what I wanted. So that's where I see a match as opposed to an opposition with those things. But Rick, thanks very much for joining Alex and myself this morning. Anything you want to say quickly, Alex, before we wind up?
Just wanted to ask Rick if our viewers want to have more information about Vivid Pix, where to go, how to follow you on social media and so on, so that they can take advantage of these great tools.
Thank you, sir. So, yep, we're on the web, and it's Vivid, as in vivid colors, VIVID dash or hyphen Pix, PIX.com. You can check out our different software, our different education. And then as far as social tagging, everything is Vivid Pix Fix. So across all the different platforms, Vivid Pix, PIX, Fix, FIX.
All right, we'll put some links and info on our website as well today, thebreakfastshow.com.pa. So Rick, thank you so very much. Alex, as always, thank you so very much. Thank you for introducing us to Rick here on this morning's Breakfast Show. And I shall look forward to continuing fiddling with for want of a better expression. So thank you both again very much indeed. We're going to take our quick little break. If you missed the news today, don't forget, I got it for you at 9 o'clock. Escucha.